I'm Peter John Ross, a filmmaker from Columbus, Ohio. Over 10 years ago, this guy started harassing me online and he never stopped fixating on me. I decided to turn it into a documentary. I've been working on Social Media Monster for the past few years. The series of events are unfolding in real time as I've filed criminal charges against the guy, a Civil Stalking Protection Order, and things are just getting crazier. These are just behind-the-scenes updates to let everybody know what's going on with the film. In 2021, I wanted to do a screening in theaters, but remember in 2021, in the spring, we scheduled the screening in July, even though we were still dealing with COVID. And this was our first screening of the documentary with a live audience. Most of the film festivals at that time were still doing virtual festivals online. Normally what you do is you have a cast and crew screening, but we didn't technically have a cast because it's a documentary. So at this time, Matthew Berdyck did not know we'd changed the name to Social Media Monster. So I even did a version of this movie with the old title of Nowhere Man. We had posters made that said Nowhere Man. The title in the movie at the screening said Nowhere Man in the title sequence. Just in case, because we were so hoping to keep this from him for as long as we can, because we knew he was going to contact film festivals and harass him, which less than 2 months later is exactly what he started doing when he found out the name of the film. Other people that Matthew Berdyck had harassed all booked trips to come to this screening. We had people coming from New York, Florida, Minnesota, Oregon, Los Angeles and California, Pennsylvania, and they were all coming in for this screening. These people were so vested in the story. They had their own experiences with Matthew Berdyck and they wanted to see the documentary, and more importantly, according to them, they wanted to support me. And I'm just not used to that. I guess for me, my personal growth as a human being is, I used to be an asshole. I'm never going to pretend I wasn't. And every single thing about making this documentary has been about kind of ego therapy, to not let my ego explode, to greatly appreciate every single person that has helped me, supported me, worked on the film even in the most minute way. They contributed. They helped make this documentary what it is, and it wouldn't be what it is, and I wouldn't be where I am without all of these people. The co-producer of the film, Alfie Gonzalez, I had never met in person. We had been talking for years since Berdyck had harassed him, contacted his wife trying to say that he's a drug addict and a troll. Like, his wife's gonna be like, oh, some stranger said this. I believe him over my husband. Like, that makes total sense. So they picked me up and drove me out there with their family, and that was just a blast. The other thing is, once we got to Missouri, it's like all these other people that I'd never met in person before are there. Matthew Berdyck claims he hates the documentary and thinks it's unfair because he does not do the type of behavior depicted in the film. So in the film, he harassed reporters at News Press Now, the local TV news and print news. When News Press Now in St. Joseph, Missouri, interviewed me about the screening, Matthew Berdyck then started harassing, emailing, and calling every reporter at News Press Now, reenacting every single behavior in the documentary that he claims he does not do.
This writer for News Press Now has published this article. News Press Now left out the background. They left out relevant information. They also made false statements. News Press Now, the newspaper, actively participating in this scheme.
I always find that to be the strangest defense against being portrayed as a cyberstalker by cyberstalking people. I've said this a million times, but the greatest experience you have as a filmmaker is watching your movie with an audience. Sitting in a dark room with a bunch of strangers and watching the story unfold, there is no greater experience as a filmmaker than that. It's the true test. Did you succeed or did you fail as a filmmaker? What I was not prepared for was when it ended, I was going to do a Q&A, and I got a standing ovation. I have never had a standing ovation for anything in my life. And I've been a filmmaker at that point for 21 years, and I'd never had a standing ovation. Even when I did a cast and crew screening of my first feature for Horrors of War, it was the cast and crew screening, we didn't get a standing ovation. We got a lot of clapping, but they didn't stand. It wasn't that impressive. And looking back on the movie, I can totally see why I didn't get a standing ovation. I didn't earn it. And so again, the point is to be gracious, not sound gracious or say things you don't mean, but to actually feel in your heart the appreciation for everybody who worked on the film and how they made this with you, that they elevated what you intended to something bigger than what you could have done by yourself. I truly feel there's a correlation between me genuinely feeling that and the success of the film.
This last week leading up to the screening has been interesting. Very, very interesting. He's pretty active on Twitter right now since Facebook is not an option. He's been recording and often immediately deleting a lot of video talking about the screening. He's relitigating everything in the film even though he's never seen the film. I find that fascinating, to try to judge a film that you haven't seen, calling people by name liars when he hasn't actually heard what they said. I'm getting a little peeved about some of it. Like, he keeps going after the woman from IOP, Rachel Hainer. A great example is he's calling her a liar about things she said in the film, and he hasn't seen a single thing she said in the film. Facebook did eventually delete his accounts, all of them, which was exceptionally difficult because it only happened because a friend of a friend saw what he was saying about me. He has renewed those accusations, all of the most horrible things he could say. He keeps bringing them back up. Well, people that I know, even just casually, get really angry, and I'm like, don't respond to him, don't write to him. I don't want to see people harassing him back. That's not the answer. But what they did is they knew somebody who worked at Facebook. Do you know how hard it is to find a human being at Facebook? They used to, even just 3 years ago in 2018, they were hiring people in India. When you file a report against a post, they had people in India that had to reconcile 100 of those an hour. They're not native English speakers, they don't know colloquialisms, they can't read sarcasm, and they don't care, and they're getting paid almost nothing. So that's how this was going bad then, and they've decided we're gonna do one better. Let's remove humans from the element entirely, and all of it is audited through AI. So every time you submit a post, it goes to an AI robot that determines whether or not you're in danger or insulted or hurt. And that's just spreading like wildfire to like Twitter, Google for Gmail. They're no longer putting people in it. Not that they ever had that many people in the first place looking into this stuff. So, I mean, again, for me, I prefer to look at this with the bigger picture than just this one guy. It's about this bigger issue that social media is empowering people that can kind of circumvent the rules, and there's no humans that get involved to help. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Sorry. Does he believe that he's really an activist, philanthropist, and a filmmaker and all these things? I don't know if he believes it or if he knows he's not real and he's just trying to convince people that it's real. And again, I can only speak to my own opinion, is I don't consider him a filmmaker. I mean, making a handful of YouTube videos is not a filmmaker, but who the hell am I? You know, why I don't know why my opinion matters so much to someone. I'm nobody. Believe me, my mother will confirm, I am not anybody significant. My mother would be the first one in line to say, yeah, I know, he needs to get a real job. He's almost 50. Yes, sir. It's strange. I mean, it was art imitating life, imitating art in a lot of ways, which was when he found out about the screening a couple months ago, he started writing verbatim the same emails he sent to the band for the concert in the film. And it was like, no new material, really? Of course, it was the hacked email account. It had to have been hacked for these. Again, I mean, I will state this clearly. I didn't see him type those emails. I can say I don't believe he hacked, but I can't say for certain. It doesn't seem likely. Yes?
Two things. Is there any reason for anyone to release? Either people that just threaten.
That's a really tough question to answer. Is Matthew Berdyck a real threat or not? I don't have a solid answer for that. I wouldn't be qualified to make any kind of diagnosis. All I can say is from his actual criminal history and talking to other people from his past, he has done violence in the past, but it has been well over 10, 12 years since I have any documented like police records of violence. So I don't know what that means. I don't have an answer. I have to present, I feel like I presented both sides of the story honestly. His denials are clear in the film. He says he didn't do these things. That's not up for me to decide did he or didn't he. Everybody can form their own opinion of that. As for is he a danger or not, I mean, I'm not the one saying he's gonna snap. He is. And just so you know, again, one of the things that makes this so interesting was virtually all of his material is from the past 12 months. He started creating these videos that were exactly what we were looking for. Because I actually didn't like the documentary before that because I felt like it's just a bunch of people beating up on a guy who's not defending himself. And then he started putting out videos to defend himself and looked the way he did. I'm like, this is perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. Yeah, and this is very, very, very important. More than once, we offered to interview him. We offered him a chance to participate multiple times. We asked him, we can try to set up an interview because it's like, there's no chance in hell I'm getting in a room with you voluntarily. So I could arrange for a film crew, like if he's in California, I know people out there, I have friends do this. But I tried to arrange it. He initially just said no. Well, originally he danced with it until I sent him a release form. It seemed to me like he was just playing with it just to get attention, just to get interaction. Similarly, we've offered him cash money for the use of his footage. But I mean, and we offered him a significant amount of money, but he's like, no, I want $500,000. Claiming that it was worth that much. And it's like, yeah, no. And technically, in a legal sense, this is all used under the term fair use. Using his footage, because we don't use his whole clips. It's used for commentary and criticism. This is legal. It's perfectly legitimate. There's a little part of fair use that's rarely used, which is if somebody makes public statements, fair use applies to use their other public statements to prove that they were not telling the truth the first time. So, I mean, I'm not someone that's going to say he's a liar. I just like to put him side by side and let him contradict himself, and you can decide for yourselves what you think. Because, I mean, it's not for me to determine what is or is not true. And that's the strangest thing about this entire story is you waver between, do you laugh at how ridiculous it gets, and then it gets really serious. And that's the real struggle working on this as a film is, there's very serious things going on. very, very serious consequences. Everything is surreal. I don't have any answers. It just seems odd. And I mean, I think the biggest reason, like in the thing about all the lawsuits, he can't really, again, that brings up the eternal questions. Like that's one thing I was promised tonight, by the way, that one of you is a process server that's here to serve me. I was told that was going to happen. Anybody here a process server? Anyone? Okay, you have something for me? No, I didn't think so. Okay, I saw another hand real quick, yeah. I've personally not reached out to his family other than his cousin who reached out to me first. But I feel like family is off limits. I do not recommend it. I've known people that have. There was a guy and his wife in Canada who reached out to his dad. Then there was a private detective in Akron who reached out to his father and mother. His father has since passed away. And he has a son and a daughter, and I feel like that stuff's off limits. They are not responsible for what he does and says. And I'm not gonna hold him to that. It's a story worth telling. I found St. Joseph to be a unique city with very unique people, and I thought the story was compelling. And this is, I think, as good as it is because it isn't about me, it isn't about my ego, it isn't really about anybody's ego, per se. I think it's a great story. The reaction here tonight has been heartwarming like you wouldn't believe. The chance to see a movie in a dark room with a bunch of strangers, that's what this is really about. To experience a story as a shared experience. We've been without it because of COVID for so long. This was one of the best experiences of my entire life tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you so much for that. So I really do appreciate it. And now, please stick around because we're about to have a live performance by the Ramey Memo.
Ramey Memo starts to set up. You start looking around the room. You're like hoping a guy with an assault rifle comes in and just starts shooting the place up like the Dark Knight premiere, hoping he hits you just so you can be put out of your misery. Just because for fuck's sake, these people in this dumbass band play once a week and their music always has sucked. Why would they headline with this garbage?
One of the things that happened all weekend was all these past victims, or just people that Berdyck has harassed, we're all together, we're all having a great time. And a lot of people had the instinct of, I want to get online and make fun of them. Why don't we just focus on the fact that we're together here and happy? Because that, to me, is what's more powerful. That, if there is a point to the movie, the point of the movie is to make something positive out of all of this negativity, to use art to tell the story and thereby kind of lessen the impact of a cyberbully, of a cyber harasser, a cyber terrorist, whatever term you want to use. Matthew Berdyck was creating these fake Text Now or Google Voice phone numbers, and he was texting me non-stop for the weeks leading up to this screening in St. Joseph. Now, they always claimed not to be Matthew Berdyck, and he denies that he did this, but these anonymous people that are either uber fans of him or his assistant that he had while being homeless living in his car, yet somehow has an assistant that texts all the time. You know, if somebody's texting me, I answer, but, you know, usually within 10, 15 minutes, you figure out, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is Matthew. He was on Twitter doing Twitter live videos, complaining about me, complaining about the documentary, complaining about all the people that were there. So one of the things that happened after the screening is we had a really big dinner one night, and we're all sitting there, and I started getting texts from one of those fake phone numbers. So I told everybody, pull out your phones and record this. They go, why? What are you gonna do? I'm like, I'm calling him to find out if it's Matthew Berdyck. There's absolutely no chance that he will pick up.
Wait, you're calling Berdyck?
I don't know that it's him, but I have a text that I suspect is him. The confirmation will be that he won't pick up. He wants to text me, but he doesn't want to talk. for some reason, this super fan of Matthew Berdyck that definitely isn't Matthew Berdyck refused to ever pick up the phone to have a conversation, but felt like texting me 28 times an hour. So one night at the hotel, while he was doing a Twitter live video after the screening, Alfie was in my room, we were talking, and I go, get out your phone, record this. I tried to call the fake number, and it interrupted his Twitter live video right there.
So, at this point, all I can do is just get a copy of this film and just...
Again, is it absolute proof that it was him? No. Is it 99.99% proof that it was him? Probably. This was our first public screening, and it was not only a successful screening in terms of selling tickets, in terms of people enjoying the movie, the questions afterwards were really solid. Beyond that, it was the first time so many of us had gotten together in person after experiencing all this online. And I do believe one of the greatest successes of the film is it lessened his power. He's just a guy out there threatening people, and that's his power, is you don't know if the threats are real. It made us all feel better. It made us all feel like we're not alone. For me, a lot of times you think, this is not affecting me, this is not affecting me, until you realize, talking to other people, it's like a lot of pressure got released by hanging out in a group and talking about it. And every single one of us had the same experience with the same person. And I think one of the greatest impacts of the documentary is the fact that it lessens his ability to threaten people. It lessens his ability to, I think that when people can see what he really is, they can see that he threatens lawsuits all the time and has never filed one. You're suddenly going to be a lot more likely to be like, just ignore him. And I think people should. When you're getting harassed by somebody like this, do the opposite of what I did and just ignore him. And he just goes away. Unfortunately, I'm way too far down the road, and now that I made the documentary, I'm kind of the center of his universe. And there's no escape for me, so all I can do is continue to document it, talk about it, and try to help other people that are experiencing this for the first time understand how to deal with it, and for them to understand you are not alone. If this just lessens the terror for one person, then I feel like the movie has done what it set out to do. The story continues. We have more to come. There's still more happening. We're off now shooting new interviews for the sequel, and hopefully we'll have more updates on it in the near future.